consider quickly the death of Abraham. A life of faith. Enough faith that he was mentioned in the New Testament. In chapter 24, Abraham sent his servants to find a wife for Isaac. This was important because he wanted to make sure that his children were taken care of and everything was set in order. They did things a lot different in the Old Testament. We talked about it before, but they were nomadic people, and when a son got married, he went and got his wife, brought her to his father's. They had tents, and they would add on to that tent, and then they would live there, and the family, as one would die, the oldest would die, then the oldest son would be in charge. He would be the one in charge of the family, and he wanted to make sure everything was in order, which is what God wants. But Ecclesiastes 7:1 says, a good name is better than precious ointment, and the day of death than the day of one's birth. Now, as we look forward to heaven, the day of death is a lot better. Now, you have to be born first. We all have that, born of water. We're born of our parents, and we live on this earth. But this life, because of sin, because of Adam and Eve, it's not eternal. So we know that when we come to the end of our life, whenever it is, whether you're 20 or whether you're 99 or whether you're 50 or 40 or whatever it is, we have a hope that we get to go to heaven. So in that aspect, it is better because heaven is going to be better, a lot better than this earth. Yes, don't get me wrong. We enjoy this earth. We enjoy our families. We enjoy grandkids. The beauty that God gives in these flowers and everything else. And apparently there's beauty in cicadas because God sent them. And they're gone now, but another 17 years they'll come back again, so we'll have some more noise. But God has a reason for everything. So the first thing here is the wrong ideas about old age. What is your ideal picture of retirement? You know, we all sit back and dream, well, when I retire, my wife can't wait to retire. She's 64 years old. She's like, I can't wait to retire. She's planning on working right now till I'm 3 months and 20 days younger than her, so till at least I turn 65 at least next May. She said she may work after that, but we'll have insurance till I'm 65. But you sit back and say, well, what am I going to do? How am I going to conduct my life? What am I going to do? Am I going to sit around the house? Am I going to go do things? Am I going to travel? Am I going to do this or that? When we first bought that camper, Becky said, well, we'll have this when we retire. We can drive the country. Then we found out how much gas it costs to take it places. At one point, she wanted us to take it out to Phoenix. I said, it's going to cost us $1,000 of fuel. She said, we'll fly. Be a lot easier. Although the camping, if you're retired, you've got time to do that. But what's the idea of retirement? Do you see yourself, like I said, rocking on a rocking chair, just sitting on the front porch, just rocking away? Too often we have a misconception of what, this time of our lives. Most people, as a lot of people say, they reach retirement. They say retirement's overrated because they find out that, they say the golden years, and I've said for years, a lot of times you get older, you find out the golden years have a lot of rust in them. You can't do as much as you think you can. Your energy level's not as much as it used to be. It's a good thing we have children when we're younger. A popular bumper sticker said, retired, no job, no work, no pressure, no money. That works too. I saw a kind of thing on Facebook the other day. Why should, they were getting $600 unemployment first when the pandemic started, plus state unemployment. He said, why should somebody who's unemployed get $865 a week and somebody who's retired get $1,065 a month? Well, how fair is that? But no money. It's like the kid in college. Sent his dad a letter. No mind, no fun, your son. Dad sent a letter back. Too bad, so sad, your dad. When I was in college, I didn't have much money. My parents didn't have much money. Had a base station CB, and I needed my last month's rent for my first year. And Butch paid me for that, and I sold him my CB, my base station CB, so I could pay my man the last month's rent. I didn't work my first year. You got to have money to buy things. When you're retired, what are you going to do? How are you going to act? Abraham's at this time, he's way up in age. So many people approach the twilight years with false ideas. You know, some people say, leave me alone. When the pastor at Clear Creek, after we moved here about a year later, the pastor who had been there, Dick, I forget his last name, at Clear Creek Christian Church, when he left, he said, I'm moving to Florida. Don't call me to do weddings. Don't call me to do funerals. I'm retired. I'm not doing anything else. A lot of preachers don't ever retire. They may not pastor a church, but they're always doing things. A lot of people. My father-in-law, I'd talk to him 3-4 times a week. He always said he didn't have time to do anything. He said, I got doctor's appointments. He said, I got people wanting me to do things for him. He did wood things like Jim did. Somebody's wanting me to fix this, or somebody's wanting me to make him this, or somebody's wanting me to make him that. He said, I don't have any time at all. I said, you're retired. Of course, as he got older, he had medical problems. It took him longer to get dressed and all this other stuff. But he said, I don't have time, so I'm going to the doctor all the time. Loretta knows how that feels. Well, that's no fun. Some people say, leave me alone. Some people say, I've earned the right to do nothing, and that's fine. When we were in Springfield, and then lived next door to Connie, we had a man, an older man, gentleman in the house right across the street from us, had a heart attack, and a man around the corner. There was one more house at the corner, and a man right around the corner. They both had a heart attack about the same time. Both doctors told these men, get out, walk, exercise, do things. The man around the corner was out every day. He come by the house, we talked to him, we talked to him all the time. The man across the street never got out. In 6 months, he died. Now, he may have anyway, I don't know, but he said, I'm not going to walk, I'm not going to do this, and he wasn't around very long. Some people say, well, I'm going to do nothing, you know, the attitude they have, and it is your right. Some people say, I'm worthless, and I have nothing more to contribute. And I've heard people say this, I've read this. If God has you alive, He has a reason for you. Am I right? Yes. I don't care how old you are. If you're alive, God has a reason. He needs you. And I know that's a strong word because God can do all things without you, but the whole time we're alive, if you're a Christian, He has a purpose. When Ryan was little, he'd make something or do something, you wonder what it was, he'd say, that's my creation, and he'd have something stacked there, or whatever it was, and he'd say, that's for purpose. That was one of his phrases. I don't care how old you are. If you're alive, God has a reason for you. Now, in the Old Testament, yeah, Abraham lived 140 years. That's a long time. That's a long time to hang around. And some people get to the point, I know a couple of people right now who say, why can't I just die? Physical problems. It's not easy. Last I read last night, that condo that collapsed in Miami, the last I saw, 5 people are dead. Have they updated that any? Anybody hear any more this morning? One lady lost her leg. You go to bed, you think everything's fine, and if you saw the how many of you saw the picture of that condo? It was horrendous. Everything's fine, and 1:30 in the morning the building collapses. My brother said that they're saying now that it's been settling for 10 years and creaking and popping. It's been settling for 10 years and didn't do anything about it, whatever. But this one lady lost her leg. That's going to change her life. You know, I was told that they were $1 million condos. I guess it doesn't matter how much you spend. Oh boy.
And they're evacuating that condo.
I don't blame them. So these people, you have things wrong. We didn't pray for these people. This lady lost her leg. Her life's totally changed. But we get to that situation where I just want to die and go to heaven. I just want to leave this earth. I just want to go to heaven. Like I said, we have that waiting on us. So you have Abraham in his life. So what about death? So then we have the example of Abraham. We've talked about this whole time. Verse 1 talks about his new wife. Now, when you get up in years, you know, Abraham and Sarah were almost 100 years old when they had their first child. That's getting up there. We talked about that when we got that chapter. Most people that doesn't happen to. We can't even imagine changing diapers at 100. Imagine chasing them around. You know, my niece has got the little one. Like I said, I told you a while back, he was born last September, and now she's got another one due, and I'll get to see him hopefully this week. She's got another one due on New Year's Eve. I said, I hope it's born on New Year's Eve. You got tax deduction for this year. Make a big difference. One minute, midnight, 2 minutes, 11:59 or 12:01 make a whole big difference on your taxes. But they're not in control of that, of course, unless you had taken. But the example of Abraham, he gets a new wife at an older age. Sarah was dead. She was buried. We talked about that. Isaac was married to Rebekah. Everything's changing. Everything's falling into place. Even though we think we know what the future needs to be, does God have everything in charge? Yes. Every little thing. Abraham was, like I said, he was around 140 years old at this time. Look at this next slide. The question would not be, why did Abraham remarry? But I read one thing, says, why not? Is there anything that says you're too old to get remarried? Is there anything that says you can't enjoy your life? I've read things where children, one of their spouses, one of their parents had died, and they tell their other parent living, you don't need to get remarried. Who are they to tell the parents what to do? I know one thing. I was never allowed to tell my parents what to do. Anybody here? I hear kids today, they tell their parents what to do, what to buy them, what to do. I mean, if I acted like some of these kids do in the store, you can talk to my sister who just sits down there with my mom. You can talk to my brother. You can talk to my sister who lives down there. We wouldn't be here now. Mom would have taken that, Bill Codger said, I brought you in this world, I can take you out and make another one just like you. Maybe you don't need another one just like me, but we weren't allowed to tell our parents what to do. Well, why not? Why shouldn't he get married? Why shouldn't he enjoy life? Yeah, he'd had a wonderful wife, a wonderful relationship with Sarah. Wasn't perfect. She laughed at God. They laughed at God. They didn't know what was going on. He was a family man. Obviously, he wasn't dead, so why not get married? Of course, back then, marriages were arranged. Things were a lot different than they are now. In the Middle East, still they arrange marriages. When girls and boys are young ages, they trade things, they give things. They still do that. We don't do that in our culture. New family, verses 2 through 4. Keturah and Abraham, they had 6 children and many grandchildren. You get that old, have 6 more children. That's a slew of them. That's a herd. The one family had 18. 18 children. The lady who was the women's dean at BBC when we were in college, she was single, she never did marry, but her mom had 18 children. She had a brother who was a doctor, and he went to Becky's dad's church in Wisconsin. Just happened to live there at that time for several years, Dr. Clement. Wonderful family, but I think her mom had 3 or 4 sets of twins. 18 children! Imagine what it would cost to feed 18 children today. Man, everything just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. We get to the marriage supper of the Lamb, we won't have to pay for any of that. But he wasn't dead, so why not marry? He's a family man. For a man who had lived so much of his life without children, and then all of a sudden, now he has all these children, he was surrounded by love. Like I said, everything was different back then. That is a lot of children, but that was, you couldn't go to the doctor and get birth control. That's how they raised a family. But what did God say? Abraham, he said, your seed's going to be multiplied as the sand of the sea, as the stars of the sky. Well, you got to have children to do that. And we know, every man wants to have a son, at least one son, because he wants his name carried on. He wants that name, family name carried on. He wants his name, the Borden name. If I would have had Becky wanted, she wanted a girl so bad. She just knew when Randy was born, she knew she was having a girl. And the doctor said, you have a boy. And Becky said, she'll tell you. She said, I have a girl. And she was serious. She told God she wanted a girl. And then years later, we get a call. Randy says Sarah's pregnant and we're going to have a girl. And he said, we're going to name her Lizzie. Melinda's middle name is Elizabeth. She told us the other day when she gets married, she's going to tell everybody her name's Lizzie Borden. That's what she's going to go by, she said. But he said, no, we're not going to name her Lizzie. We're going to name her Elsie. Because you're older, you'll know who that is. But we had 2 boys able to carry on the name. But Becky thought for sure, I'm having a girl. She told the doctor, I'm having a girl. Well, Randy's not a girl. Didn't work that way, but now she's got 2 granddaughters, and she really thinks the world of them. They both say Pop's their girl. So. But there's no sign of Abraham giving up. Why give up on life? And this is what I want. I should have put that on the slide. As we get older, yes, it's not easy. Me and Mike's talked quite a few times. He doesn't have the energy he used to have. He used to walk 2 miles in the woods to go deer hunting. Now it's hard to walk 20 feet sometimes, right, Mike? You know how it is. You get out of bed, you don't even have the energy to raise yourself up. Some people do, some people don't. But that doesn't mean you give up. Like I said, God's not finished with you until you're in heaven. Don't ever give up. Everything's not going to be perfect in this world, I guarantee you. It may get worse. We think it's been pretty bad the last year. Abraham was a responsible father who made plans for the distribution of his wealth, and he was a wealthy man. In our selfish society, somebody said it's easy to buy into the notion that we should live only for today and let our kids take care of us in the future. Paul said, for the children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children, 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 14. Wow, that's different, isn't it? You give everything to your children, but a lot of parents want their children to have it better than they did. Am I right? Some of us had it pretty bad. We were so poor we couldn't even pay attention. You all know what it's like. Dale's talked about it. You guys know what it's like when you can't hardly afford anything. When my dad had 4 children, made less than $3 an hour. Of course, things went farther then, but still, when you're paying rent, and you're paying a car payment, and you're doing everything else, and feeding mouths, and I agree, things were cheaper, but still gotta have the money. God said, I want you to enjoy life. Another popular bumper sticker said, I'm spending my children's inheritance. You've probably all seen that. I'm having a good time. I'm spending my children's inheritance. But we all, as parents, we want to leave our kids something. Most parents want to do that. There's nothing wrong with that. Abraham's in his old age. I'm spending my kids' inheritance. Of course, some people don't spend a penny, so they don't have to worry about that. But I'm spending my kids' inheritance. Abraham's, made sure that his children were taken care of properly. And then his final departure. One time, I said he was 140, but when he got married and everything, all that stuff, but he lived to be 175 years old. Back then, that was common. Now, they say, doctors and scientists say that the earth was different then. They say that the air was cleaner, the water was cleaner. They're saying now a lot of these cancers and things may come from animals. We feed them all these hormones and all this stuff, and who knows, we got all these things that happen to us now, but they said back then, people lived a lot longer. I would venture to say that when you're 100 years old, it's like being 40 now. Because he had 75 more years. I don't know, I wasn't there, but you could just imagine that when you're that age back then, things are a little bit different. A good old age for an old man, full of years. The emphasis here is not just on quantity of life, but on quality of life. when John Mitchell had his cancer, he could have had treatments, and he said you could have treatments and live quantity of life, or you could have no treatments, have quality of life. And he said, that's what I want. He said, I don't want to have the treatments. I don't want to have the chemo and stuff. It makes some people really sick. But the quality of life. Now, our country, our culture today, everything's not perfect. Boy, it'd be nice if it was. It'd be nice if we each had our own private island that we could call ours. Well, Jim and Ann do. They have their own island. Old 37 and Ketchum Road, all there. They're the V. You got your own private island. There's no traffic out there. Nobody ever comes by. It's quiet. There's never any gas explosions anywhere near their house, anything like that. But they do have their own private island. I don't know what it's going to be like in heaven. It's going to be different. But quality of life. God wants us to have that. His two sons, Isaac and Ishmael, they came back together for the funeral and burial. Now, we know today, and if you didn't know, all the trouble in the Middle East is because of Isaac and Ishmael. That's where it all stems back. It all stems back to them. You look at the history that Ishmael, that's where it all stems back. He was buried beside Sarah in the cave at Machpelah. Now remember that? Remember we said that he didn't own that land? But he set it up. He knew how it was going to have to be set up. You know, we do that now. We try to get burial plots and get buried with family members close together. That's just what we do. And like I said a couple weeks ago, they'd be buried with the fathers. They would take all the bones and gather them all together and buried together with the fathers. Now, I don't know if they knew about the spiritual life back then. We know now that to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. He's buried beside Sarah. And then God's blessings came soon on Isaac. Well, it had to. What did God tell Abraham? I'm going to bless your seed. Well, I want you, before I read the last thing here, God blesses our seed. Children are an inheritance from the Lord. When we got married, Becky wanted her quiver full. Anybody know what a quiver full is? How many is a quiver full? No, there's a number. None? 13. When you had a quiver full of arrows, it was 13. Not a baker's dozen, it was 13. She said, I want a quiver full of kids. And then came Randy. No, we could have had more kids, but we decided we were in college, we were poor, we decided we can't afford to take care of more children. That was our choice, and we prayed about it. We didn't want to have any more. But God had promised Abraham that he would die in peace, and he did. Like everything else in life, we can be successful in our old age. You have to start working on it at an early age. So as we come to the close of this thing on faith, and we're going to play that song in a minute, the faith of Abraham, we found that there is much that we can learn from his faith in God. And that was the whole purpose of this. It was preserved and accepted in the man's faith that he might be a great example. And before I read the last sentence here, when our faith is great, we are an example to somebody else. I've said for years, somebody's watching you. Your neighbor, your cousin, your enemy. Somebody has their eye on you. We lived in Springfield. Connie lived next to us, and a man named Mr. Owens lived next to us. And Randy and Ryan called him Grandpa Owens. He gave Connie food. He gave us food. He gave Becky a lot of fruit. When she was pregnant with Randy, he brought her stuff all the time. He always gave Ryan big nickels that were $50, 50-cent pieces. His wife was dead. His children were grown up. And the Lord used him to help us. We were poor, but he wanted to make sure Becky had a lot of fruit and nourishment while she was pregnant with Randy. He was a blessing. God put us there. God preserved the account of a man's faith. I started saying, and when people watch you, he knew every day. He said, Rick, he said, I know that at 10 to 4, I lived about 5 blocks from work. He said, or 20 to 4. He said, I know at 20 to 4, your car's going to back out of the driveway. Because he said his house was next to Connie's, and his couch was, I went down and talked to him a lot of times. His couch was this way, and he always had the door open. He said, I know at 20 to 4, he said, you're going to back out of the driveway and go to work. He's like, I can count on it. And I never have been a person who liked to be late. Some people, does it bother them? I like to be early. It took me 5 minutes to get there. I never did like to be late. Still don't like to be late. That's why I want to be here early. We first moved here, waiting on the kids and everything else. Carrie came in early this morning. I said, you guys are early? She said, we left Wyatt at home. You don't have to worry about Wyatt. We'd have to get the kids ready, and we were late a lot of times. We lived all the way across town, and then Becky's dad bought that car, that old Ford from his neighbor, and that thing was welded. Jerry was a welder, but the bracket on the front, there was a bar in there welded on the front for the radiator to hold up, and it was, the outside of that thing was rusty and stuff, but the inside was immaculate. But that gave us a second car. I was able to leave and get here on time. That's just how I've always been. And our lives for God will increase blessings. God will increase blessings as we increase our faith. Somebody you have an impact on. Doris had an impact on a lot of people. And I'm not just talking her immediate family. Yes, her children. But you go, Aunt Doris this, Aunt Doris that. Aunt Doris this, Aunt Doris that. Because of her faith, her husband eventually got saved. Mike and Sonny are here. There's going to be a reunion one of these days. You're going to get to see Mark. You're going to get to see Dad. You're going to get to see Mom. Because one day, John came on Sunday nights, and he came once in a while on Wednesday night, but he came almost, not every Sunday, but a lot of Sundays. They went to the cabin every week. They came back from the cabin every Sunday morning so that Doris and the kids could come to church. That in itself was a blessing. A lot of men wouldn't have done that. He was stubborn in a lot of things. If supper was at 5 o'clock, he wanted 5 o'clock, not 5:01. He wanted everything on time. But we pulled in one Wednesday night, and he was sweeping the leaves in the front. Becky got out of the car, and she said, Grandpa John, it's good to see you tonight. And he said, I got saved. He said, I got saved. And he was at church every Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night after that. Till the Lord said, I'm done with you. Somebody is watching your faith.